Okay. Let's get going. We are going to lunch at noon till 1. So it's in shifts. We get the food first, I guess. Yay, get all you want. Hey. So, if Munchkin doesn't bring parents' car to school, is Munchkin covered when he drives a roommate's car? Maybe. Parents are thinking of excluding Munchkin to save some money. I hate that endorsement. And if you use the operator exclusion endorsement and he drove the roommate's car, would he be covered or not? And does one really have anything to do with the other? No. So I have to be careful about advising people not to use the operator exclusion endorsement with an incorrect reason. Because I've heard some agents say, well, if you use the operator exclusion endorsement, they're not covered when they drive the roommate's car. Well, that's got nothing to do with it. They might not be covered when they drive the roommate's car because they drive it too often. The operator exclusion endorsement has nothing to do with vehicles other than the ones that are on the policy. So, 2016 Mass Auto Policy and the 2008 similar. I don't want to keep putting them both on because I get tired. Again, Part 4 and 5, I know they respond to My Auto, and according to AIB, both Part 4 and 5 will respond when your household member is legally responsible for using an auto. So that could be the roommate's car. Could my policy follow my kid when he drives somebody else's vehicle? Yes. The insuring agreements are designed to be very broad, but then we also have to read the rest of the policy to see what we lose. Insuring agreements give you the world, and then exclusions take some of it away. And again, Part 6. If Munchkin's in somebody else's auto, occupying your auto or somebody else's auto. And Part 7, as we saw before, your household member, other private passenger auto. So could my policy respond when parent policy responsible when Munchkin drives somebody else's car? Yeah. But Parts 4, 5, and 6 have exclusions. 2008 and 2016, same exclusion. Yes, my policy will follow me and household members, but there is no coverage for a household member if they're using any auto how regularly. Part 5, my policy won't cover a household member when they're using an auto, which means non-owned. How? Regularly. Again, Part 6, medical payments. When they're using an auto, how? Regularly. And I smooshed this out. We will not pay for any auto which is owned by you or regularly used by a what? Household member. So yes, my policy will follow household members, but not when they use a non-owned auto regularly. So to say don't use the operator exclusion endorsement because then they won't be able to drive the roommate's car, does that not imply that if you don't use the endorsement, that when they drive the roommate's car, they will be covered? And you're wrong. You don't know. How often are they using the roommate's car? Because the policy itself excludes that activity. You need an endorsement to remove the exclusion. And it ain't got nothing to do with the operator exclusion endorsement. Absolutely nothing. It's an E&O creator if that's the reasoning you gave not to use it. So if Munchkin drives roommate's car too much, then he or she will have no parent coverage under parent policy. I don't care. Got nothing to do with the operator exclusion endorsement. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Bam. On page 39, I used the 2017. There's an updated version. It really doesn't matter. Just there's a 2008 version. Operator exclusion form. It is agreed by the insurance company, the policyholder, and the person named below. That's a little bit different than the older one. We're all on the same page, it's saying. That the excluded operator, that's just like the older version, will not operate the vehicles described below. And don't you usually describe the vehicles on the parents' policies from which they are excluded from? Yes. So you've listed specific vehicles they can't drive under the older version and the current version. And they cannot use those vehicles under any circumstances. But unless you listed the roommate's car, this endorsement has nothing to do with when they drive the roommate's car. The policy itself says, if you do it too often, we ain't gonna be there for you. And there have been Massachusetts court cases that have invoked the regular use exclusion, and the companies win and the insured loses. So this endorsement, operator exclusion, is only about the parents' vehicles. And when they come home and drive the parents' vehicles and they have not been removed from this exclusion, can we deny coverage? Absolutely, absolutely. The older version just reinforces General Provision 18. We can deny all optional coverage and restrict compulsory to what we're required to sell. This is a little bit stronger. The policyholder and excluded operator understand and agree that the insurance company will not pay. The other one says might not. This says will not. Still up to the company under the optional insurance parts. And then it's interesting, we don't mention compulsory, so maybe you have to pay the $250,000 of PD that I have. The older version says we'll restrict you to what we're required to sell. But I'm excluding a particular person from a particular vehicle. I am not expunging them from the face of the universe. That's not what this endorsement does. Now, an ISO has created an endorsement that does that. That's not what this does. This says designated person won't drive designated vehicle. The rest of the world, vehicles are fair game. So, I worry about when they come home unannounced to get toilet paper or to do their laundry. And oh, by the way, can I use the car? It's like, then that gets dicey. But this endorsement's got nothing to do with driving the roommate's car. The policy says if you drive a particular vehicle regularly, then we don't pay the claim. Parts 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's part of the policy. You need an endorsement to buy that back. What about the parent's umbrella? Does it still cover Munchkin? I don't know. I always have a problem with umbrella questions because umbrella is non-standard. If your company uses ISO, great, I can look it up. There's a 2006, 2014, but if they write their own, you'd have to send it to me. And then all you get is an opinion of what their policy says. Will the personal umbrella respond when the kid drives a roommate's car? Could. It could. Are they still uninsured under the auto policy? Are they still uninsured under the umbrella policy? I don't know. If they're in a dorm room, they probably are. If they're in an off-campus apartment, I don't know. Because the umbrella has its own definition of insured. So if they're insured under the umbrella, it could. But umbrellas never like to pay the claim from the first dollar, at least not when it's due to auto or premises liability. Weird things maybe. You get a self-insured retention. But when you're driving an auto, we expect auto underlying limit. I bet, does the roommate have the underlying limit requirement? I don't know. If the car's in their name, quite possibly not. In which case, I want to make sure they can get back to mom and dad's policy and then onwards and upwards into my umbrella. And again, can they get back to mom and dad's policy? I don't know. How often do they use a roommate's car? Because the regular use exclusion could preclude them from the underlying limit requirement. So umbrella is always, I don't know. Got to read the endorsement. Got to read the definitions. And I know that some umbrellas do have named driver exclusions. And that one does expunge them from the face of the universe. In order to retain my umbrella years ago, because I did not kick my daughter out of the house, she went on a named driver exclusion, and it said any vehicle. That means her ability to ever potentially drive my car was done. But see, I read my policy, I know what it means, and then I do what I need. People that don't understand insurance just think we're a racket and won't pay attention. So this expunges them. They can't use any vehicle. This is worse than the Massachusetts endorsement. And if you have the operator exclusion endorsement on your auto policy, can that be a deal breaker from being able to keep your umbrella policy? With some companies it is. Or they'll retaliate and use this one, which is worse than the one that goes on the auto policy. So then I need to say, okay, from an umbrella standpoint, yeah, your kid is a black hole. We don't recognize them. They just don't exist, like space. They just don't exist. So never going to be there. From a homeowner standpoint, are they still, an insured under the homeowner so they can, again, get into the umbrella? Dorm room, probably. Off-campus apartment? Probably not. I don't know. How does the umbrella look at it? So, the umbrella is that much further away. Will it let you list that kid's apartment as a residence and charge a premium? The worst you can be told in life is what? No. And if you don't like the word no, you are in the wrong business. Because you're told no by your client, you're told no by the company, you're told no by, the underwriter, the claims department. No is just a word we understand. Don't like, but we understand it. But again, if the parents have signed the lease and made themselves legally liable, I want to make sure the umbrella will look at that location, at least as far as the parents are concerned. And the kids if they're under 21. I don't know. So, hey. At some point in time, some earlier than others, parents ask you legal questions and you always say what? I don't know, ask a lawyer. Dan Foley reminds me of that all the time, that I am not a lawyer, do not have JD after my name, and should be really careful of the things I give out from a legal advice standpoint. And he's absolutely correct. But do they want us to tell them everything in the world and expect us to know everything in the world? All the legal answers supposed to know. All the DOT and registry answers you're supposed to know. As a person in this world, you do have some responsibility. And unfortunately, as insurance agents, we take on their responsibility in situations where we can get ourselves into trouble. So when I get this question, I ship it right on, and I have done that in the past to Dan Foley, who has JD after his name, and let him answer it. And so that's what I've given you. Car and kid's name. In Massachusetts, not in Rhode Island, not in New Hampshire, not in Maine, not in Vermont. I don't know other laws. But in Massachusetts, we have wacky laws sometimes. And when it comes to automobiles, we don't necessarily look at vicarious liability. And so, and this is all lawyer speak, and I gave you the answer as written by a lawyer, and if you have any further questions on this issue, what are you going to do? You're going to email Dan Foley at massagent.com. That's what you're going to do. Because he's still legal. He used to work for us. Now he's, kind of legal consultant, and you can still ask him questions. And when he retires, I hope it's the same year that I'm gone too. So, it just is, and I'm not a lawyer, but it pretty much says the owner of the vehicle is responsible for the actions of the vehicle. In some states, if you're a parent and they're under the age of 21, you might put the car in their name, but you're still legally responsible for it. That's nice. In Massachusetts, we don't look at that. The problem is, the second they drive over the border into New Hampshire, into Rhode Island, into Maine, does it matter how Massachusetts looks at life? No. But from accidents in Massachusetts, if the car is in the kid's name, that puts a barrier up for the parents, which is a nice thing. And from the standpoint of willful, which to me, a car is a dangerous weapon when I'm aiming it at somebody. But again, the most parents can be responsible for is $5,000. Hooray. That's mass law. And here's the lawyer speak. When I see Irene Morrow forwarded your question about putting the car in the kid's name. And there's a couple of them. If a student, so in Massachusetts, the parent to date has not been legally responsible for accidents when the kid's driving a car that's in his or her name. But the second they leave the state, until they're the age of 21, I don't know. Now you have to ask the New Hampshire law, association lawyer, whatnot. So if Munchkin leaves the borders, all bets are off. I tell you, in high school, senior year, my girlfriend and I decided we were going to drive to Canada. Montreal. We did. We drove to New Hampshire, Vermont, to Canada. Never told our parents. Does that happen today? Absolutely. Absolutely. So unless you get the little GPS in your car or your phone, you have no clue what your kids are doing. And if you think you do, you're foolish. So other kids can make the parents responsible and do it. So but is it not a bad idea to put the car in their name? In Massachusetts, why not? But that doesn't give you them a license to buy minimum limits. I think that's abhorrent. Whether one agent said, the person came in and said they were talking to their lawyer. Well, that's always a great start to a conversation. Great. And he or she said, put the car in the kid's name, and then they only need to buy minimum limits, because what's the kid got? And my next word is now. What does the kid have today? Ain't gonna make diddly squat when they drive that car, cause major BI and PD, and they're in college and they're gonna go on to be a lawyer or a doctor or computer geek, where they can make massive amounts of money. Because, at least in Massachusetts, a judgment lasts 20 years. And if I find out you only got 2045, I'll wait. I will wait. You throw 20,000 at me, that's an insult, for crying out loud. And to most people, what are you going to do with 20,000 when you're seriously injured? Laugh. It's like having nothing in 2018. I'll wait you out. 20,000 is not going to make my life any better. I'm not releasing you. How's that? And your company has to pay me that 20,000 if the accident happened in Massachusetts. So there. And I'm still coming after you. And I'll wait and I'll attach your pay. So there. You're better off to buy insurance and give me go-away money. Because the more you give me, the more opportunity you have to get rid of me. 20,000 ain't getting rid of Irene, I'll tell you. For me, I have underinsured motorist coverage in my umbrella too. You got a company coming after you. They ain't gonna give up either. They got a whole subrogation department. How's that working for you? So, car in the kid's name, still, I think everybody in the household should have the same liability UM and UIM limits, wicked high. Put a barrier between parents and kids. If it's a Massachusetts accident, great. But I still think they need high liability limits. And if your lawyer told you something stupid, get it from them in writing, because then you can have a malpractice claim against them. Why not? Plus, if you buy low BI, you got low UM and UIM. And pretty much, they're seriously injured. It doesn't matter which vehicle their butt is in, they got to go back to their mass auto policy. They're not even at fault. They're the victim. So, low limits are bad. Putting the car in the kid's name, not a bad idea. Because now it's going the other way. With the advent of the direct riders. It doesn't matter who owns the vehicle. Or we put all the vehicles in the household under the same policy. Is that happening? Absolutely. That's happened in New Hampshire for a long time. And I find a problem with that. When my daughter got her first car, she was under 18, the used car place, she went with my husband, and of course they put the title in two names, because if you put it in the name under 18, they don't pay. So it was registered to Charles and Aaron. And so the agent automatically put it on our auto policy. It's like, I don't care, she's 17. But after that, it's like, no, I want her to have her own insurance, her own policy, same limits. But a lot, they'll put it on the same mom and dad's policy. Yay. Problem is, do you know what's happening to that kid's life? Might he or she decide not to go to college, but actually move out of the house? Could that happen? Are they now, by definition, a household member? No. They're just a permissive operator of that car that's in somebody else's name. When they're not in that car, they get hit as a pedestrian. Where are they going for coverage? Nowhere. So if I put kids' vehicles on parents' policies, which can happen even with voluntary companies out there in today's world, I think I have an obligation to know when that kid leaves home, because when he or she leaves home, she's no longer by definition a household member. If she's driving that vehicle, does he or she need to be a listed operator? Absolutely. But that's all they are, is a rating function. They lost insured status. Yet if the car was in their name, in a policy in their name, do they always retain insured status? Absolutely. So, oh well, that's my tale of woe today. So bad, low UM and UIM is bad. So page 46, so I, boom. Car and kids' name, when they move out, they're still an insured under their own policy. They're a you. It's always best to be you, correct? Amen. When the policy is in the parent's name, or the vehicle's in the parent's name, and it should be in the policy should be in their name, when they move out, they're covered when they're inside that vehicle, but not covered when they're outside that vehicle. They've lost insured status. So, time to own their own policy. Page 48. Is that 48? Yeah, time flies. Am I supposed to list all operators of my auto? There's two categories I have to list: household members. And then the insurers, but they're not going to drive the car. Shut up. That's not what I'm asking you. There's two categories of people. Household members. If you don't want them to drive, we'll discuss that in a minute, but household members. And then, customary operators. A household member does not have to be a customary operator. Need to list household members. Then you either rate them or exclude them or defer them. Customary operators. They could be household members. They might be your next door neighbor. They're people that use your vehicle. What does customary mean? I don't know. It's not defined. It's not defined in the application. It's not defined in the manual. It's not defined in the policy. So if you represent 20 companies, can you have 20 definitions of customary operator? And that's why you get the big bucks for being the independent insurance agent. Keep all that information straight. Yep. So just a customary operator now, who I let take the vehicle with them to wherever it is now. The garaging has to be changed, correct? I still have to list them. The fact that they have my last name is immaterial in life. They are somebody using a vehicle that's on my insurance policy. They lose insured status when they're not in the vehicle. Living in my household. They finally moved out. Hallelujah. That don't mean they ain't going to move back, but right now, they're no longer a household member by definition. And again, the mass auto policy only follows you and household members, you and household members, you and household members. Other people are only covered when they're in the vehicle, using it with consent. So they lost a lot of coverage. So if the car was registered to them and it's in parents' name, I think they need a separate policy when they actually move out. And if it's still registered and entitled to the parents, I might suggest to the parents, well, isn't it about time Munchkin gets the vehicle in his or her name so that when they actually have moved out, they retain insured status, whether they're in that car or not in that car. Because once they move out, the only time they have auto coverage is when they're in that car. And who knows what other people have for coverage when they are in somebody else's vehicle. So when not in the car, no auto coverage. They get hit as a pedestrian, which you can't watch the news for more than 2 days in a row without seeing some poor pedestrian getting whacked. That happened in Ocean Boulevard after the baseball game the other night. And then they got killed, not good. And if they're using somebody else's vehicle. Some people just don't see the value of buying a lot of auto insurance. That is not the way I look at life. But some people, they can't eat it, drink it, taste it, wear it, smell it, use it. They think it has no value. I think the insurance product is the one thing that has the most value of anything that I buy. So being a customary operator, And then if they have your car and they let a friend use it, that friend can cause an accident. Does that friend have the consent of the owner? If it's in my name, they don't have the consent of the owner. So again, that could be problematic at the time of a claim. Not if, I used to deal with claims and people, I told him not to let her use that car or her to get back. Ooh, let's tamper this down a bit. Because if you even say that about your own kid, the company can deny claims. So let's tone it down. You wish they had driven better. I get that. You wish Nitwit wasn't driving. I get that. But he and she are boyfriend and girlfriend. You're going to be the odd man out if you don't tone it down. Tone it down. And if it's your own kid and you say, I told him not to do that, does that give the company the opportunity to deny claims? And you're the parent. Now it's going to happen. You can let them deal with the consequences of their action, which is a novel idea. Probably won't happen. Now it's more money out of your pocket. Let's let the insurance industry deal with it. So, garaging has to be changed for sure. Could be good, might not be. And that has been the Massachusetts Supreme Court. You didn't tell us where that vehicle was garaged. We deny claims because we can, under all optional insurance. And 3 and 4 is restricted to what we're required to sell. That has worked in Massachusetts Supreme Court. We win, you lose. And from a garaging standpoint, the town might want the money for the vehicle that is in its byways and highways. They get a little bit feisty over excise tax because they have to collect it and they get to keep it. It's the keeping it they like. So. And homeowners, again, if they haven't had their own tenants policy, well, if they're no longer in a dorm room, and if they're no longer in school, if they're really emancipated, they darn well should have a tenants policy. I think every household needs a homeowner's product. Anybody disagree with me? Because if you do, you're in the wrong industry. Everybody needs a homeowner's product. And an auto product is not bad. It's easy when you buy the auto, but even still, do you have some insureds that have company cars? Don't have an auto in their name, but you still might want to make sure that they have auto coverage in their name, which can happen. So when you're not insured under the homeowner's policy, you lose coverage, you lose contents. I don't think contents is that I think people do. But I like a tenant's policy from the liability standpoint. I used to laugh that, a tenant's policy is liability coverage with contents thrown in on the side in an odd sort of way. And then when you ask people how much contents they want, what's your answer? I don't know. After the I don't know, 5,000, 10,000. Now maybe that would work for a kid, I don't know. But probably not, because they have had mom and dad doing what? Buying them stuff for a couple of decades. So they're moving out with at least $10,000 worth of stuff, I would imagine, and maybe more than that. Problem is, people don't buy things all at once, but can they lose it all at once? Absolutely, it happens. So I need them to think about that. And now that they moved out, forget my umbrella. And I think it's good to have auto umbrella in home. I don't know if I can get the young people involved in that or on board with that, but if they're working, why not start protecting themselves now? Okay, page 52. Munchkin on his or her own and finds their soulmate. They move in together. If Munchkin didn't already have a tenants policy, definitely should have one now. And what about that significant other? Are they an insured under Munchkin's policy?
Soulmate, are they married?
No.
No, not unless you add them.
You know, from the standpoint of, if you live with me, that's nice, but you're not insured by definition. Resident relative, well, she's only 19. Oh, grow up. I know there's something in the homeowner's policy that says you're an insured if you're under 21 and in my care. But that really wasn't designed for roommates and live-ins. It really was more for like foster children, foster children, foreign exchange students, things of that nature. And then if you get a significant other, could they be driving your vehicle? Do you have to tell us? I remember one woman said, well, I don't have to tell you. I'm not married to him. I said, yes, you do. Doesn't matter. Is he going to drive your car? Yeah, but he's a lousy driver. Well, maybe you don't want him to drive your car then. But you have to tell me if he's driving your car. Because two categories, household members and customary operators. If that's what's keeping you from being married, don't let that stand in your way. I might give you some other ideas of why you should not marry this fellow, but that would not be one of them. So, can't afford to lose everything all at once, and we definitely need to think about a decent limit. Some people think, oh, well, I'll rely on tenant relocation. That's another joke. Does it, if you're, wasn't there just a tornado in the area?
Yes. Yep. Lincoln, Rhode Island.
Lincoln, Rhode Island.
There was 2 in Bourne, 1 in Raynham, Brockton, and I think one other place.
So a bunch of them. So when they take the apartment, throw it around and disperse stuff all over the place, what's tenant relocation going to do for you? Nothing. Because the only peril that activates it is fire. And then if the apartment building burns, how much are we going to give you? $750. Oh, yay. That won't even give you enough money probably for a security deposit on another apartment. You need a tenant's policy to take care of you. So, I mean, tenant relocation, $750, yay. You got more than that in contents, never mind anything else. It's just a joke. It's something that the landlord, if it's a multiple occupancy building, has to do it, and it's only for fire, and who cares? You need a tenant's policy. So, you know, there used to be an III, Insurance Information Institute, used to have an online software program, knowyourstuff.org, but they've disbanded that. So I keep Googling, you know, software, you know, content evaluation, but it's all company specific. And so I don't like to send somebody to company specific stuff if I don't represent that company. So I don't know of any software evaluation to help you ascertain how much content you need. I'd rather buy too much than too little. So. And significant other, page 55, is not an insured. So if the tenant's policy is just in Munchkin's name, girlfriend or boyfriend, not an insured. Can you put a tenant's policy in 2 non-married people's names?
Some companies.
Yeah, that, you know, that's the issue. Some companies. Can you make, on a voluntary basis, a company give you a tenant's policy in 2 unrelated people's names? No. Can it be done? Sure. Will it be done is up to the company. MPIUA will do it? Oh, that's good. So, you know, that would be the best bet. However, if Munchkin signed the lease and significant other hasn't, should significant other really be on that tenant's policy? And once he or she is, if they decide they really, living together has done it, I mean, I don't like you enough to marry you, fine. if significant others are named insured, what do? When Munchkin calls up and says, he or she left me, take him or her off the policy. And you say, you can't do it. But the lease is just in my name. It doesn't matter. Because in personal lines, all insureds are equal. We don't have first named insured. If you made him or her a named insured, you need him or her's permission to come off, to be totally errors and omissions free. And if it was an unhappy breakup, that might not happen. Kind of like an unhappy divorce. No, I'm not taking that. So even if they can get a policy in both names, is it the best idea? I don't know. Not if you don't stay together. I need him or her to sign off saying that they'll come off the policy. And again, if he or she's not a named insured, then not an insured from a content standpoint, not an insured from a liability standpoint. They need their own coverage. He or she needs a tenant's policy, Munchkin needs a tenant's policy. If they get a tenant's policy, great. I need that person's permission to come off the deck page. Now, if the policy is just in the name of Munchkin, and there's a covered loss to contents at the apartment, could Munchkin choose to cover significant other stuff? Yeah. I mean, HO 91, we cover personal property owned or used by an insured. HO 2000, I didn't put that up there. 91, 2000, 2011. Owned or used by an insured. And then it says, I mean, if significant other brought the living room furniture, if Munchkin sits on it, is he or she using that property? Yeah. And then for any personal items that that Munchkin's not using, it says that, you know, at your Munchkin's request, we will cover personal property owned by others, while that property is on the part of the residence premises, the apartment occupied by an insured. Can Munchkin choose to cover significant other stuff? Yeah. Same thing under the HO 2000 and 2011. But it's up to Munchkin. If he or she's not in a good mood that day, not going to happen. And if he or she doesn't have enough for his or her stuff at Munchkin, it's all the way first. So it's at the named insured's option, which is really better. I know the 2000 and 2011 has an option to make the significant other an additional insured. Does any HO 91 carrier have something like this too? Because they probably have. In which case, tenant's policy in Munchkin's name, we add significant other on this endorsement. They break up. What can Munchkin do? Say, get that stupid endorsement off my policy. And does a named insured have a right to do that? Yeah. Absolutely. And does he or she need significant others? No. It's, you know, it's expensive because it's really like 2 apartment policies, but at least Munchkin retains the rights to his or her policy to add or subtract endorsements. Yes?
What about an engaged couple with scheduled jewelry?
What about an engaged couple with scheduled jewelry? Ooh, we had that in other class. If they're living together, can I add the schedule to Munchkin's policy? Yeah, can the company do that? Yeah. You know, like, is she living there or he living there? Yeah. And if it's an endorsement, the policy is just in Munchkin's name. If they break up, number one, if it's a him, he should get that ring back, because isn't an engagement ring a contract? You get to own it once you say I do. If you say I don't, it should revert back to me. That's why I say never give an engagement ring on a holiday, because we might confuse that with a gift and it's mine now. So, but other than that, it's a contract. But I've had insurance companies that if you're living together, they'll put the schedule on them.
Well, if one party already owns a home,
If one party,
she moves in or he moves in.
if one party already owns the home until they're married, yeah, you know, and technically, even when they're married, should they necessarily be a named insured? If the house is owned by Munchkin, should they really be on the declarations page if they're not on the deed? Which is an interesting concept because, again, in today's world of prenup agreements, you might be better off with this endorsement. Though, once they're married, could the policy still be in Munchkin's name? And is significant other now better half? Automatically and insured, because the definition of you automatically includes what? Resident spouse. So even if the policy is still in just Munchkin's name, scheduled personal property floater, which the ring now belongs to the other. And when they get divorced, he or she gets to keep it. Yay. But the schedule for your question, it's up to the company. If the significant other is living there, if you don't put it on Munchkin's policy, then the significant other needs a separate inland marine policy, correct? Or their own tenant's policy, which can be redundant. But any endorsement question is always up to who? The company. It's never up to me, the agent, or you, the insured. It's up to the company. Okay, there you go. Landlord, I'm so sick of this. I just want to slap risk managers. The landlord wants to be an additional insured. Now, Bud and Irene are landlords. We have now divested ourselves of various property. We only have one property that we rent out. I want you to have a tenant's policy. I do. And I want to see a certificate of insurance once a year. And no, I don't assume it's going to do anything other than I thought you had a policy in 1 day of 1 year. But I don't ask to be an additional insured on it because I know it's not that easy to happen. Will homeowners, is there an additional insured endorsement designed for landlords? No, there really isn't. I mean, with ISO, this is it. We have, with the HO 2000, we have other members of household, but that's got nothing to do with the landlord. And we have assisted living, which again, my parents go into an assisted living place. I can add them onto my homeowner's policy. It's like a tenant's policy added to my homeowner's policy. But other than that, there is no option. There isn't any. And the HO 91, this is the only one we have. And pretty much it really doesn't work because it talks about coverage A and B. If Munchkin has a tenant's policy, how much coverage A dwelling, coverage B, other structures do they have? Zero, because it really starts with coverage C. There is no A and B on a tenant's policy. I mean, they might have improvements and betterments. That's a whole different issue. It will make the landlord an additional insured for the residence premises apartment, but do you have homeowners carriers that will let you add the landlord on as additional insured? I mean, they can do it, but a lot of them seem to be saying, talk to the hand. The answer is no. You know, how valuable is this client to us? You know, what other things do they have? Which is the way it is in life anyways. But how much does this endorsement cost? Trick question. Nothing. That's why we don't bandy it around too much. I mean, realistically, how often do we want to give away something that costs nothing? So, you know, at best it could get liability, and you know, they do get a cancellation notice, and you know, but some landlords will accept the additional interest endorsement. What does this do? It lets them know about a cancellation. It says nothing about insured, nothing about insured. But when it's attached to the policy, if Munchkin defaults on premium payment, then we tell this entity. And if we decide to non-renew Munchkin, we tell this entity. So you get notified when Munchkin no longer has their policy. So if that's really what you want, I mean, if you think, you know, I just, if I'm an underwriter, I say no. You know, let them buy their own insurance. You know, novel idea in life. How about that? This is not your commercial policy.
Like when you go to rent an apartment, we have a lot of clients who have gone to an apartment complex and they're requiring them to have the renter's insurance with the additional interest on it.
Yeah, okay. You know, and again, could a company say, we're not going to issue this endorsement? Always. I mean, all endorsements are optional. But hopefully they will, just so that they can get into it. Because all it does is demand a notice that we're not making them an insured. And if the complex is happy with it, that's great. Because that's about all they're going to get. And just a couple, when you write a homeowner's policy or a tenant's policy, do you always add the replacement cost endorsement on? You know, I did 40 years ago when I was an agent. I mean, because otherwise, on what loss settlement basis do we pay contents claims? Actual cash value, which means old for old. You know, everything has a lifespan, and they do, like, you know, however many years of it you haven't used, blah, 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 blah. At this point in my life, I have some contents that I've used a lifespan up of. And they haven't become antiques and will not. Not everything you keep becomes an antique. Just ain't going to happen. But in 2 more years, we're going to move again. And I just don't need, I ain't buying anything new for a temporary location. Because what I learned, I've moved 5 times in 20 years. That whatever you buy for one location doesn't look right in the next place you go. Or it doesn't look as good. So I got old crud. I have, you know, if I had a loss, actually, I think I'd end up owing the insurance company. If you looked at actual cash value. But we got a sofa, you need to sit on something. So I want this endorsement. And it pretty much says, I got to replace. If I don't want to replace the stuff that's damaged, do I get replacement cost? No, that's a basic tenet in life. Then I revert back to old. Now I owe them again. I guess I'll buy a new sofa. Why not? So, you know, pretty much whether it's a tenant, a condo policy, or home policy, this is just always put on, always. It's not free, but, and again, in today's world, I never thought of this 40 years ago, but I certainly think of it today, personal injury, another bam, automatically. Because it's just, you know, you can just inadvertently say something stupid that some people take exception to. And I want defense, if nothing else. So, okay. All righty. A little bit more, and then we'll take our lunch break. But vacation. So Munchkin and significant others are going on vacation. Yay. Has Munchkin listed significant other as a driver on his vehicle or her vehicle? I hope so. I really need to know customary operators, because if if significant other is driving Munchkin's vehicle and is not a listed operator, what can the company do? Deny all optional coverage. General Provision 18, false information is not your friend. It says we can deny all optional coverages, and 3 and 4 revert back to what we're required to sell. And Part 4 is $5,000. Whenever I get an email saying, well, the company's only paying $5,000, I'm assuming that whoever insures that other client sold more than $5,000. And General Provision 18 is where the company is. And when your company won't pay out more than $5,000, I'm assuming you sold more than $5,000 for Part 4. And your company is looking at all the lies you're insured. Or not lies, that's such a dreadful word. All of the lack of information that has not been sped up to the food chain, to the insurance company. Do your company still do renewal questionnaires? Yeah. Some do, some don't. Right, a renewal questionnaire just puts a nail in the insured's coffin, does it not? Because when you send out 100 of them, how many are responded to? 5 if you're lucky. The other 95 circular filed it or strutted it. And what does that tell the company? For all of the 100, what does that tell the company? Nothing's changed, or for those 5 that did respond, if something changed, then we endorse the policy and life is good. So false information, and AIB, like ISO, uses the words, well, we may refuse to pay claims under any of all of the optional insurance parts, that's 5 through 12. Such information includes. The word includes means what? Not limited to. These are just the things you normally don't like to tell us, but they're not the only things that will bode evil for you. Includes description and place of garaging, the names of all household members and customary operators, and the answers given for all operators. So, but pretty much anything you didn't tell us that could have increased our risk of loss can give rise to us invoking General Provision 18. So if you or someone else gives us false, deceptive, misleading, or incomplete information in any application, which could be the renewal to or policy change request, and if such information increases our risk of loss, which could pretty much means it changes the premium, which is in competitive auto, every blessed thing that ever happens, correct? Every piece of information you tell me is going to affect the rating of that policy, which it interests me to no end, how having 5 operators versus 4 operators changes the premium. Having 4 operators versus 3 changes the premium, and you can never tell when it's going to what? Go up or down. Yay. So I need to make sure I know what's going on, and if significant other is driving Munchkin's vehicle, he or she needs to be listed. And then, however that affects the premium, I can't help you. I cannot help you with that. So, and no, it's not just household members. And listing somebody as an operator does not give them any benefits to Munchkin's policy. It's just when they're using Munchkin's car, it's one less reason to deny a claim. That's what listing the operator, that's all it does. And so when significant other is not in Munchkin's policy, vehicle, then if significant other doesn't have their own vehicle, should they have a named non-owner policy? Should we suggest it? It's an opportunity for a sale or not. When they go on vacation together, Munchkin probably shouldn't let significant other drive the rental car, correct? Because listing significant other on Munchkin's car means significant other can drive Munchkin's vehicle. Does significant other live with Munchkin? Yes. But does that make I'm sick of saying those words. So a household member by definition? No. So if she or he drives a rental car, we could have a problem, because that's when the accident will happen. And the mass auto policy will say, hey, that's nice, don't call, we don't care. And if Munchkin is going to let significant other drive the rental car, should they buy liability coverage from the rental company? I suggest that. Can you buy liability coverage from a rental company? Yes, you can. And should they buy the loss damage waiver? Absolutely. Especially if you're having significant other drive, because Munchkin's auto policy does not care about this person one iota unless he or she is driving Munchkin's car. Get nothing in the world to do with the policy. Just a rating function. And this is just one of many rental thingies I have. I love this one because I love the beginning of it. Renter agrees by his signature on the face hereof that he has read. I like this. How many people have rented a car? How many people have read the contract? This one says, you did. You signed it. You read the contract. We know that's a joke. I don't sign the contracts, but I read them. My husband rents the vehicles. And you're pretty much responsible for anything that can happen to that vehicle. And violations. So Munchkin would have to list significant other if he or she is going to drive, because it pretty much says by any person other than the renter without consent of the owner, which means you need to be listed. And quite often when I rent a vehicle and I list another driver, what does the rental company do? Charge a daily rate for that driver. But if you don't list them and they drive the car, then you violated the rental contract. And if you bought that extra liability coverage and you bought the loss damage waiver, you just threw money out the door. So, again, and Munchkin's mass auto policy is not going to respond to any claim when other than Munchkin is driving. But significant other is a listed operator, right. Listed operator means customarily drives Munchkin's vehicle. In order for the policy to follow significant other, we need to put a ring on that finger, or at least get the marriage contract. And on that happy note, see you at 1.